Hey, hey, happy Sunday. I'm so happy you are back again with me today. So, we are here on part three for the boundary series. So, I'm so excited to be back again because I believe that this has been purposeful so far. So, today we're going to talk about what could be preventing us from setting boundaries and how to set boundaries. Um, Emotional boundaries are what we have pretty much been talking about so far. Uh, we got to realize that sometimes it could be the adversity within ourselves that's keeping us from doing what we need to do, and that could be include setting a boundary. So, number one would be fear. Um, it's always something scary about doing something different. So, I had to ask myself at some point, what am I actually afraid of? Right? What is going to actually happen if I actually go through with what I say I'm going to go through with, saying, hey, this is okay or this is not okay, setting that boundary, thinking about what can happen when you do set that boundary or what might not happen, right? We think about what we might miss out on. We think about the trouble that we might gain or the argument that might happen because you're trying to set a boundary. A boundary is something that uh, it sometimes can make others feel a sense of resentment. They could be like, "Oh, well, now you act like you're too good," or things like that. And it's like not that way at all. You just have to, uh, respect yourself enough in order to set boundaries. Because if not, then people are just going to walk all over you. So by asking myself these questions, I was able to give myself what I call a reality check because without boundaries, I had to realize that I was just making myself stuck, and I was making myself stuck at my own adversities, not anybody else. So number two would be hesitation. I mean, you can really compare it to fear, pretty much kind of like the same thing, the hesitation. But then what the difference to me is that I pretty much 100% convinced myself that this boundary is going to solve my problem or that this boundary is not going to solve my problem. So if I'm hesitant to even start to try to set the boundary, then how can I get ahead of it? How can I make sure that I get my respect and make sure that I protect my feelings and my energy and things like that if I'm hesitant, if I'm procrastinating, I just never do it. So what I'm learning the closer that I get to Christ is that I don't have to be 100% sure about anything. I just need to trust him. And as long as I go to him then about anything before I make any decision, then I need to just do it when I'm brought to it instead of being afraid or being hesitant. So another reason would be because we simply don't know how. Um, you might have grew up in a house where there weren't any boundaries. Maybe it wasn't any boundaries at all. Maybe it started with boundaries and then it ended without any. A lot of different scenarios that you might have came up in, but um, if that happened for you, then maybe you just never saw it happen. Maybe you just never saw how to set a healthy boundary. Maybe boundaries were set and maybe we thought, oh man, that's just too much, or my parent is too strict, or my grandparents too strict, or my aunt or uncle, they just don't understand, or whatever it might be. But really, they were setting boundaries for us when we were kids to protect us, right? Um, and if you grew up with no boundaries at all, then it's not too late. It's something that you can learn because you want to have boundaries in your adult life for others and to teach your children the same way so they can grow up with boundaries because just because you didn't doesn't mean that they can't. There's a lot of different ways how, but today I'm going to talk about 10 real quick. Number one, clearly identify. Clearly identifying the boundary is, it's going to make ourselves not only seem more understood, but for the next person to understand what we're requesting. And it's really important that the boundary is clear because a wishy washy boundary is not effective. We're going to spend less time, um, trying to figure out how to deliver it, how to say it, versus actually just getting it out, getting it over with, getting it taken care of, the way that you mean it and not being wishy-washy. Number two is we got to understand why we need boundaries in the first place. The reason being to, again, not wear ourselves out, not be put into a box with everybody else. We want to be ourselves. Number three will be straightforward. Um, that's kind of like being wishy-washy. We don't want to be too vague, thinking that the next person is going to understand, or thinking that we're going to avoid conflict, or thinking that we're going to spare their feelings. We have to be straightforward so that, they know that we mean business, and just be as kind as you can. Number four is to not apologize. There's no apologizing for the way you feel. Um, this kind of behavior is going to really kind of throw the boundary out the window. It's going to have the impression of this is not even really serious at all. What are we apologizing for? We can't apologize for setting a boundary so that, we can have more peace in our life, more happiness and love and things in our life. So a boundary is definitely necessary. Number five, we can use a calm and polite tone of voice. If we know how to keep our anger in check, then, having these type of conversations is not going to be hard at all. Um, just by trying to set a boundary and trying to bring it up to someone doesn't have to turn into a shouting match. It doesn't have to be, um, you know, it doesn't have to be my sarcasm. It doesn't have to be me yelling. It doesn't have to be me talking in a certain tone to get my point across. I just simply want to say what I want to say and be as calm and polite as possible so that person can take it the best way as possible. Number six, start with the boundaries that are harder. Um, and I mean that by maybe with the people that you are nervous or hesitant to speak to, or um maybe, for instance, if you met somebody new at a new job. I mean, most of the time you want to make a good impression, you want to fit in, you want them to like you, right? But sometimes as a result, you could be overextending yourself. You could be agreeing to commitments and to appointments and to help and do things that you don't really have time for. So now you're tired, and at this point, you're turned into a people pleaser, and you've done that in order to fit in at the job. But at the same time, you have loosened your boundaries. So if we can set a clear expectation for what we want, um, and set a clear boundary at the beginning of that new job or that new relationship, then, once we get into it further, we're not going to feel resentment. Again, that word comes up, resentment. We're not going to feel like, oh man, I should never done this. Should never come here. I should never have, put myself in this predicament, because we know that the boundaries that we have set are tight. They set in tight place, right? We're not going to let them wiggle depending on who it is or what's happening. So number seven is address boundary violations. So, if you, for instance, going back to the story about my parents and their flowers, when the neighbor was being super extra nice and trying to come and bring in the mail and bring in the paper and help do this and that all the time, maybe a boundary could have been set, like, no, no need to bring my mail up. I'll get my mail myself every day. Thank you so much. Or no need to bring my paper in the house. My daughter will bring the paper in when she come home from school. That way the neighbor would have moved away. She would have not literally moved away, but she would have hopefully backed up a little bit, like, okay, they want their space. They don't want me coming over there. And, she turned out to be sneaky, but, ultimately maybe she would not have done what she did because she was afraid to go past the boundaries that were set at the beginning. So number eight, don't take it personal. Don't make it personal. Not don't take it personal. Don't make it personal. So setting a boundary is not a personal attack on whoever or whatever, right? It's just simply, um, you know, letting people know that this is what it is, that it just has to be this way because I have to protect my peace. I have to protect what I worked so hard to build. And, I can't let anyone come and tear that down because of their, picking at my boundary. But if I didn't make my own boundary at the beginning, if I didn't set that to begin with, then I can only be mad at myself. That's that adversity that we were talking about, that procrastination, that hesitation, that fear, all those things. Number nine, use a support system. So, I mean, when it comes to setting boundaries, that can be tough, and they're going to bring about some uncomfortable feelings. They're going to bring about some doubt within your own mind. But if you have a support system who is, a friend, a family, a therapist, or whoever it might be, who is going to, pour into you in such a way that you know that that boundary that you set is needed, is necessary, then you'll feel better because you have that support system. But if you're doing this all by yourself, you're likely to be in your head. You're likely to back out. You're likely to have that wiggle room and those boundaries and not really be stuck to it. Number 10, trust your intuition. If we slow down and tune into ourselves more, we pay more attention to what we are feeling, what is that gut feeling that we feel, right? Um, if it feels wrong, we got to make a change. And that just goes most of the time, that change is just a simple boundary. It's as simple as saying, no, thank you, don't bring my mail up, I'll bring it up myself. Or, no, thank you, I don't need a lunch bunny, no, thank you, I don't need a lunch buddy at lunch today. I'm okay. Right. And even if they pressure, like, come on, everybody needs somebody to sit with for lunch. Nope, not me today. And you don't have to explain yourself. That's it. You just stop right there. You put your foot down, and that's it. Now, you have people who want to try to, they want to test you, right? They want to be doing whatever, even though you've set that boundary. But even then, I encourage you not to react, right? Because we know we trust in Jesus Christ. We don't have to fight our own battles. But what we do have to do is stand firm in those boundaries that we set and don't let anybody make us change our minds, basically. Trust in our own intuition. So that is the end of this video. Part 3 has come to an end. Thank you so much for coming again. I'm super excited about part 4, and I pray that this is being a blessing to you, and I can't wait to see you tomorrow. So have a good rest of your night and stay blessed. Bye-bye.